Everything's getting prepared here.
It always seems as simple as it looks, but then it never really is when you get get into it.
I've had some challenges for sure with Zoom. Hopefully my internet will stay stable this whole time. So we'll see what happens.
Likewise. Well, I've just seen it go live up on my phone, so it always seems as simple as it looks.
I'm your host, Anthony Gilbert, and I'm excited that you're here to journey alongside me.
I've had some challenges for
Lace
sure.
up the shoes and journey through
Hopefully my
life.
internet will stay stable this whole time. So we'll see what happens.
Likewise.
All right. Thank you. So we got a 20-second delay here.
Well, I've just seen it go live up on my phone, so I can hear the playback.
I'm gonna mute myself so I don't. There we
There
go.
you go. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today on the Scarecrow Runner podcast. I have a special guest all the way from the land down under. We got Mr. Chris Furlong. So welcome to the show, Chris. Good morning, because it's bright and early there in Melbourne.
6:30 a.m. Yep.
Man, Australian time. It's 1:30 in the afternoon here, Central Time in Oklahoma. Love technology that we're able to talk to each other and communicate. Even in a crazy time as the pandemic has caused, it's even though it has created a lot of antisocial behavior with a lot of people locally, people are still able to communicate. People are able to reach out, and I think it's really elevated a lot of things in a lot of different business aspects. I know in my career, we were working with Zoom and Teams and things like that a year ago, which it was good for us and it was good for me. And then everyone else has now caught up, right? Everyone's doing Zoom calls now. Everyone knows what it is. I was doing it before it was real popular, which was fine. So now everyone's on the same page. We're able to do really cool things like having a live podcast on Zoom as well as YouTube. So really cool opportunity. And so thank you, Chris, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And definitely excited to talk to you today and pick your brain and share with the listeners and the watchers. That's a new piece, having people watch, but that's all good. We're both comfortable with it. We're both, for those that don't know, Chris, Chris is a pretty big YouTuber, in my opinion. He's got a nice following. I'm trying to get where he's at, and eventually I'll get there. But you can find Chris, CL Furlong. If you look that up, you'll find him on YouTube.
Yep.
And, your intro is really catchy. It's like all of your videos when you get ready, it's good morning or good afternoon.
Yeah, it's become a bit of a cliche. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always you've always got really positive videos on there, and that's good. That creates a great contact with the watcher and the listener, and so you're always upbeat and positive. Even though sometimes things are not as positive as we would like, right? We both face challenges as runners. And so we'll just jump in, Chris. I'll just throw some questions your way and I'll let you talk and share. And then we'll kind of go back and forth and see how things, as one of my friends would say, we'll see what we can get into.
Yep. No, it sounds good, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on here, and for the first time being on the live one as well. It's always very exciting doing something new. But I mean, it's all the same, really. It's just at the end of the day, we don't even realize who's watching or what's happening while we get into it. So, no, excited to be here, mate. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, fun stuff. So Chris, you've been running for about 5-6 years.
Yep.
And I know you kind of started off slow. What were you doing before you started running? Just give us and here's the thing. Most of my guests, most people I talk to, they were either a basketball player, a soccer player. They had no athletic ability whatsoever. They were in band or some other, thing, or they just had no athletic ability and they just kind of discovered running, right? Because most people that I know, even myself, at one point, running was punishment. Running was something that you did in school, either PE or something, and it was either punishment or for extra conditioning, and you didn't want to do it. But as we both have learned, we've embraced it. It's something we enjoy, and we actually do it now because we want to do it, not because someone's making us do it.
100%.
And so, what did you do before you discovered running?
You probably nothing. Which is I guess part of the reason why So I guess to take a step back. So I mean, maybe back in probably even before high school or whatnot. I was doing all the, younger sports. I did a bit of soccer. I did do a bit of basketball, but, that was going up through primary school and high school. And then as I progressed up, going through uni, I gained all the nice kilograms, just as you do. And I got to a point where I kind of wanted to I needed to obviously get in shape and just feel a bit more comfortable and confident with myself, and getting into the position where I was about to start a working career as well. And so I was doing, kind of just, normal exercise routines, just probably more HIIT, like high intensity, and, started to do a bit of a diet change as well. But, I was told that, I probably need to start doing some cardio. And I always used to say, I can't do the running. And because I was a bit bigger, every time I would run, I would get like shin splints, or, obviously it was very uncomfortable being, and I was a bigger boy, so wasn't really built for the running. However, I went to, local shop and, got checked out, and I got on the treadmill, and they found out what's the best shoe for me. And then when I actually got a chance to do the proper running, I realized, hey, actually this is good. And I guess I had a bit of a Forrest Gump moment where, all of a sudden I was running and everything was just like, yeah, I can do this, right? And it wasn't very far, but like to me it was a big deal because I hadn't done it. And I always, looked at it from this perspective. It's like, oh, it's such hard work and pain and suffering, as you said. But then, so obviously I started it as a bit of a, more for exercise, weight loss. And I guess as I got into it, I started to get really, I really do love self-achievement, self-growth, and I'm a numbers guy. So, when I first did my first run, I might have done like, maybe I could run, 600 meters without stopping before walking. And then, I would do a total of 3K, but I had to walk 4 times or something. And then maybe the next time I could like, I ran for a full K and then only walked. And so each time I was running, I was, I guess, really getting into this progressive or growth perspective. And I guess I kind of got a bit addicted to, the growth and improvement and seeing the numbers. So next time I ran, I did it in, maybe it was 20 minutes, and the next time it was 19 minutes. And that really fueled me and got me excited. And then, that was probably in the first year of running. And then as I progressed, I started to do, not just a 3K, but a 5K, and then 10K, and then obviously progressed to half, and then a full marathon. And now it really is, something which frustrates me when I can't run because, it's become more than just a physical exercise. I do it for physical exercise, but
Sure.
it's now part of my life for the mental elements, to de-stress, and just, just to get out and have some fun. And of course, it's my YouTube channel. Like it's my content on my channel. So yeah.
And with it, with the YouTube piece, the same for me. It's like social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. I know you're on both, and we're friends on both of those, but also YouTube. It's a whole different platform, right? But it's great to share with others. For the longest time, I used to have a hard time, man, people are gonna get tired of seeing me share my own running stuff, right? And it's like, you start to wonder, is it because I'm conceited and I just want to toot my own horn and I want people to see what I've been doing? And I'm like, I've been running for so long, I don't care. I don't have to share it. I just share it. And it's not because I just want to share it. It becomes accountability, right?
Yeah.
And so when I'm posting something, people start to see, well, then I've had people ask me, hey, you haven't posted anything on running in a while. Are you doing okay? And I'm doing fine. I'm taking some time off. And so it's, it kind of flips the script back on yourself. It's accountability. It's not because I want to post a picture of myself with, I ran 5 miles today. Woo, big deal. I've got all the tracking mechanisms and apps, and I've got it on my watch and my phone. I don't have to post it. I see it every day.
Yeah.
It's that extra accountability. And so you take that and then you flip it and you help others. And, I've gotten that to where others have reached out and said, thanks for sharing, right? Thank you for doing this because of what you've shared in your adventures, inspired me to go and start running. And I signed up for my first marathon or something like that. And so then it's like, wow, this is a really cool thing because people are actually watching. Not everybody has to, but the ones that are really, truly inspired will follow along. And there's people, here's the thing, Chris, is there's people that watch and pay attention. They don't always they don't always comment, but they are watching. And then I've gotten feedback saying, hey, I'm just random. I always love to see your running posts. I'm like, they see those? They obviously scroll by because they never interact, but it's the non-watchers that are the ones that are really watching. And it's just like that with anything, right? Whether it's some business that you've started or some adventure that you're doing, just because you're not liking it doesn't mean that you're not paying attention. You're a silent observer, as many would say, kind of that stealth mode, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a really cool thing. So you, just like me, well, of course, not exactly, but a lot of people get into running to lose the weight, right?
Yep.
And the weight loss, because nobody wants to get fat, nobody wants to be bigger. And when you're shorter than I am, but I'm tall.
Yeah.
But I'm a bigger guy, and so it's a little harder for me to move. And so when I start gaining those extra pounds, I'm like, I don't want to be heavier.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel good, right? I want to be able to feel good about myself. I want to feel good about how I look. But the thing is so many people are challenged because their diets aren't good, right?
Yep.
And so, I mean, you can be a runner and eat like complete junk. We know that. But you're not going to produce very well because, junk in, junk out is what's going to happen, right? As a college athlete, I didn't eat very well. I ate a lot of junk food and I was running competitively. And you learn real quick, just like if you were to, put fuel in your car. If you put in fuel that has water or something in it, your car is not going to run very well. You're going to have issues, just like what we put in our body. If you're drinking plenty of water, your body's going to feel better. But if you're just drinking soda, I've got a Dr. Pepper over here. It's a bad habit. But you flush your body with the water, you're going to feel better. You put that food in you, you're going to feel better. And so a lot of people often frown upon running because the doctors want them to exercise. And they're like, I don't want to exercise. And running is not always easy to get into, like you said, because for somebody that's not used to it and their body's not used to it, it's painful. It hurts. And just like anything, Chris, things take time, right? It's just like with your YouTube channel, there was growth and there was pain, right? And there was a learning curve. We have that with running. You can't expect somebody that's never ran before to go out and run a marathon, right off the bat. You've got to have some foundation. Right. I've been running 30 plus years, since I've been almost, since my 5-6-year-old range. And some people are like,
how do you sound like I'm just getting started then?
And, that's the thing is a lot of people are just now getting into running and, they're older than I am or they're the same age as I am.
Yep.
And I'm like, man, my body, for me, I'm getting tired. Okay. I can't compete at the same level as I did 20 years ago when I was in school, but I can still maintain. But there's people like yourself that are just getting into it, which excites me because I'm like, man, they're just now getting into it. I wish I would have had this type of platform then, because it would have really inspired me to do more. But someone that's just starting out, I know for yourself, Chris, what kind of challenges did you have when you were just, you're wanting to lose the weight? You don't feel good about yourself. You're a little bigger than you wanted to be. What kind of challenges did you have when you first started? Because, we just talked about being painful. It hurts. You've got to push through, right? And get to the point where it becomes a routine and you have to establish a routine.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think, it's all a bit of a blur, but the first thing that comes back is, well, one, since I was overweight, I think it's probably a confidence thing as well. And the doubt of, I can't, I didn't really want to go run with other people, or I didn't want to, join any events, because the way I was looking at it is like, I'm not doing it to race or whatever. I'm just doing it for me, which is a good thing, right? But I think you kind of summed it up with anything in life as you start to progress, whether it's physical exercise, a new job, or, growing a YouTube channel or business or whatever, right? There's always going to be, that mountain you have to climb, because it's that learning curve, right? And then I think with anything, it's about finding the healthy habits and routines to really get that into something which is just generic, right? And it's probably the same way that I think about how I now do my stretching or mobility or yoga or stuff to keep me, I guess cross balanced with my running, is rather than trying to just do that all in one day, is I'm doing a little bit of it every day. So it's part of a routine consistency. So that way it's not a chore as such. It's something which, okay, I'm going to get up, do this, I'll do my routine. And then, then you would go for a run kind of thing. And it was the same for when running. Is when I first started, is I made Saturdays my running day. I wasn't really, I wasn't at that point, I wasn't excited to be running every day. And I definitely wasn't in the condition to be running every day, just because my body wouldn't be able to handle it at the point. But, as I started to have, the consistency of Saturday afternoons was going to be my running day after I got home from my retail job at the time. This is way back. I used to actually get excited, right? I'm like, oh, I finished work, I'm gonna go home, go do a run. And driving home, I would be, driving past where I was gonna run, and I would be thinking, oh, I'm gonna run past it, and I would start to get really excited. And I guess I got into this zone or mindset around that. It was more than just the actual physical exercise, but I was starting to enjoy it. But I think probably when I first started, it was probably obviously it was a physical pain. But I offset that with I guess a bit of the challenges of, or I guess the excitement of the self-growth, and seeing it on my watch or my phone at the end saying, oh, I did better this time, or I ran a little faster or a little stronger. And, to be able to have that growth, and I guess seeing it straight away, I was just like, hey, this is, it makes you feel good when you do something a little better, right? Whether it's, tangible or, and the good thing was no one else had to tell me, because I knew it myself. Like I could see it, right? So it was more of a personal, private growth experience, I guess, because as you said, you can put something on, Facebook, Instagram, and share something, but some people might not care, or it might just look like, okay, why is he doing that? But regardless of that, I'm going to be looking at it anyway and be feeling, I feel so good because I just bet my time by 1 second, right? So to a runner or someone doing that, it feels like the best thing in the world, right? And until you experience that, you won't know, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, in some of the information that you sent over to me, it's also addictive, right? It's once you do it enough, and it becomes something that you see some progression, as you've talked about.
Yeah.
It does become addictive, especially if you're a very competitive person. Sometimes some people are not very competitive, and that can be more of a challenge for themselves, and they're going to have to deal with themselves internally. They have to deal with those personal demons, as they would say. But for myself, I'm all, especially in this pandemic, right? You don't get to spend a lot of time running with others. And so, for me, most of my training is done by myself. Because I don't know all the time. And that's one of the things, like you said, you set a schedule and you were running on Saturdays. Well, I have a running schedule, but I don't necessarily know exactly what time I'm going to run every single time that I go to run, right? It's up here, and it's depending on what's going on and the surroundings, or, whether it's my kids or my wife, or we've got this going on or this going on. Then you start to juggle, and that becomes the prioritization of what's more important, right? Do you run early? Do you run late? Do you not run at all? Because one run's not going to kill you to miss. But it's where the string of not running for a couple of days, like, taking 2 weeks off after my 50 miler, your body starts to say, what are you doing? And your mind starts to mess with you, because it's also for you, just like for me, it's therapy, right? It's the mental therapeutic of getting outside, getting some vitamin D from the sun, also getting outside and just being in the elements and fresh air. I know you like to run and see the scenery and the birds and just everything around you. Same here. You take in all the nature as possible, and it makes you feel good. Then you go out and you run. But, I train solo because I don't know when I'm always going to get an opportunity to run. Now, most of the time, if I run with somebody, it's because we've made a plan to do it ahead of time, right? Hey, let's get together Saturday and run. Then we've got a plan. But as far as training goes, man, most of it, I'm a lone wolf. But as you know, in a race, you're not running with another person in most cases. You're running because you want to beat your personal best, your personal time, or you're wanting to accomplish something. And so when your training runs, like you said, I beat my last week's time by 5 seconds, or sometimes I don't hit, I don't do that all the time, because you do wear yourself out at times.
Oh,
if you're like every single run, man, I lost 5 seconds on this run. It's killing me. But you can pick small things to challenge yourself. Like for me would be negative splits, right? Trying to get each time. It might not be the same time as what I ran last time, but if I can do a progression, if I'm knocking time off of each mile or each kilometer for you, then that's a success for me. But then there's also times when your training calls for, a long run or something of that nature. You don't have to worry about the time. It's the time on the feet. It's just getting the run done.
That's it.
And for ultra runners, a lot of times it's not about how fast you're running it. It's just you're covering the miles and you're getting the time on your feet. And it sometimes takes time for you to get that in your mind that you're not going out to run to try to beat the clock or beat your watch or your personal best. You have to develop that rigorous mental edge of training, with a training plan. That throws all the competitiveness out the window, right? You've got a task and you've got a goal that you're wanting to try to accomplish. And you don't have to worry about competing with yourself or with others. You'll do that when you get to that milestone where you're wanting to do your race, right? And sometimes training plans are long, but I also know that you've got a short training plan that's going on right now that we'll talk about here in a little bit. So training plans are all different shapes and sizes and colors, if you would even put color in there. Not everybody does the same type of training because I know your first race was a half marathon, and that was one of, I ran some 5Ks and such before I ever ran a half marathon, but my favorite race distance is the half marathon. And then I progressed higher mileage and kept going. So training plans, whether it's a 5K or, like Tuesday when I went out and did my 1 mile time run, different things call for different speeds and different just overall measures. And so the challenge mentally is just getting yourself over the hump of just going out and running first, and getting through the pain. It takes 20 days to establish a good habit, right?
That's it.
And some might think that running is a bad habit because, you're putting yourself through pain and suffering. But for you, Chris, I know for me, I feel good. Even if I'm not feeling good when I go out for a run, when I get that run completed, you feel good about yourself. And I always feel better when I've finished running. I might have felt like complete trash when I started, but when I finished, it had layers of different complexities of how I felt. Is that how you are?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, and that's probably part of it, which is what I've started to love about running, right? Is because, when I first started, of the whole exercise, and then, you starting to, I guess, obviously when you first start running, you're going to be achieving things a lot quicker because, you're getting into the new elements of running. But once you get past that, you'll either start to think, well, what's next? Or how do I get that same vibe from it? But as I started to run more as a routine and just as something to enjoy, to get out and just, free the head and whatnot, it really did become that place of where I was able to kind of detox or, get rid of frustration or just, have a conversation with myself or just kind of really break down, as you said, some of the layers of, everything that's going on. And, before I start running, I might have had a rough day or rough morning or, previous day or whatever. But once you get out and run, you just feel like $1,000,000. And well, that's how I feel anyway. And it can be just some sprints, it could be just a long run, it could be whatever, right? But I think getting out is what makes all the difference. And it's usually actually the days where you feel like, you don't feel like running or you're just not in the mood or whatever, that you end up doing something amazing, right? Whether you do get a new time or you just come out and you feel like super strong. And I think that's the beauty of the run, right? Is that it really does kind of, sometimes it can give you some nice slaps in the face, but in different ways, right? It can be a bit of a wake up call, or it might just, get you back into, where you should be a good frame of mind. Or sometimes, you will have tough runs, but at the same time, it's a good beating, right? If you feel like a good workout, you come back sweating, you just feel like oh yeah, that's what I needed to get the frustration out, or I needed it to just, feel alive again, or whatever, right? And sometimes it's nice just to be able to do a run and just feel like, oh, I've still got it, and it's just a quick win for the day, right? Because you've just gone and done 5K, right? It's like, yeah.
When you can go out and knock out a fast run, you're like, yeah, I still got it. But as a runner, you can't put, for those that are listening that are just starting out as runners, or just even wanting to begin to run, one of the things you got to learn to get over is your pride, right? Because we both know our bodies, Chris, I know for me, there's times where I've done all the training, I have eaten all the right things, right? I prepped for the race, or the training run, whatever it might be. As we both know, the conditions might be perfect. Your body, you feel good. You've done everything that's textbook that should be done for a race or a training run. And you get out there and the wheels fall off and everything is horrible, right? And so people get oftentimes that are especially rookie runners get discouraged because the run just was horrible. And then they're like, man, what's the point? This is horrible. I try to tell people, I have times where, I've been running long enough. You have good runs, you have okay runs, then you got crap, right? And those are the ones where you just got to learn to just chalk it up as mileage and don't worry about it. Sometimes you might have to cut your run short and just pick it up another day if you're not feeling it, if it's just not clicking. But the thing is in the grand scheme of thing, that one workout is not going to make or break your entire training program.
Correct.
You might feel your hamstring or a knee or an Achilles or something. You got to listen to your body. And so you might have to shut it down early. So pick it up the next day or 2 days from from then and do it. But the thing is you're always going to have a bad run of some kind because those bad runs will make you appreciate the good runs. And you look back and say, oh yeah, I had a couple of those last year when I was training. I was like, man, that run was horrible. I felt like junk. My time was junk. I didn't feel good. And I literally stopped and started walking. I'm like, I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
You just pack it up and, you have your good days, you have your bad days, and but the good days are going to outweigh the bad days when you're running.
Always.
And, but we both go in with the mental aspect. You can't train thinking that everything's going to be rainbows and unicorns and sunshine either, because there's those, as I would call them, fair weather runners. And for my friends that might be listening, don't take offense to this. But you're the ones that if it's raining outside, you don't want to run. If it's too cold, you don't want to run. If it's too hot, you don't want to run. If you're tired, you don't want to run. Well, if it's all of those things, the chances of you running are probably very small, right? You got to learn to train in all the conditions and all the elements. And I think that's another piece, Chris, that ties into that mental aspect of things, is it develops that toughness. You do it for the mental side. You're outside in the elements. Well, how many races I've ran where it was perfect weather? Probably less than 10% of the time. Most of the time, like my 50 miler was in pouring down cold rain for most of the race.
Yeah.
You got to train in all conditions and all feelings. When you don't feel good, you still have to train, right?
That's it.
And if you didn't, you don't want to go and eat a heavy meal and then try to go and run, because that's not always going to work out well. You learn from your mistakes. So what's one of the biggest challenges for you, Chris, when on the mental side of things? I know you've talked about elements and getting out there. What's hard for you to push through and to get yourself going? Because it's not always sun shining and nice weather out there for you, even in Australia.
Yeah. It's to be honest, it's. I mean, if you'd asked me maybe 3 years ago, I'd probably say, "Oh, it's raining, I won't go out." But now it's kind of like it. Now probably where I wouldn't go out was if it's a bit more of a safety concern, right? So if it's drizzling, it's like, stuff it, go out. But if it's actually smashing down and there's thunderstorms or big winds, because we got a lot of trees around, it's like, nah, it's not worth the risk, right? And so picking the I guess being smart about it. And that's probably now where the way I look at it, because I'm especially when I was training for the marathon, you've got set time where you can do it because you got work and stuff. So I'm like, well, I got to get out and do an hour on the feet, right? So if it's a bit of rain, who cares, right? And if it's a bit more, well, I just being mindful of that. But to be honest, I'm trying to think of, there's been days, to be honest, there hasn't been many. Usually when I feel like not running, I'm going to get out and do it anyway. And it's just trying to find out whether it's going to be longer or shorter or whatever. Obviously, usually it's the other way around. Usually I'm having other people trying to say, no, you can't go out and do this. Or it's like, you're not feeling well, take a day off, like a rest. Or like, if I'm sick, I'm Googling, like, can I run with a, block, it's like, and trying to see what's right and wrong. So it's probably the opposite, to be honest. I haven't struggled with the challenge of, getting, wanting to get out and run. I think, when out, maybe running, when I first started, it was probably, as I started to get further into the distances. So maybe when I started doing 5Ks, when you start to feel a bit more of the pain is, doing that mental element of like, I just got to go a little further, 1K more and pushing through it. And then as I've, gone from 5Ks all the way up to marathon, and training for that is, it's usually, finding your groove, getting into the zone, but then trying to not get into that element of when you start walking, because once you start, that's when it's going to continue, which is fine. I mean, it's okay. It's all part of the battle and whatnot. But really trying to push through that. And I think over the years, it's really changed in, I guess I was very competitive against myself when I started. And like, to me, I was, really pushing against, like if I wasn't, if I was walking, it wasn't good enough, or, things like that. But now it's, of the flip side, it's like, well, now it's more around, well, I'm training. If I'm going out and doing 28K, it's about being smart about it, taking the time, if I need to walk, that's fine, right? Because it's all part of it. And it's more around getting through the mental of 28K or 35K or 42K, right? Whereas, because it's not about, wanting to get it done as quick as possible. It's about, getting it done, right? And getting it done strong. So yeah, I think that's probably been the more challenge. Obviously, when you're in the run, all of a sudden you can be all high and almighty, and then all of a sudden it's just a wall, right? And everything just tumbles and changes. And I think, the last marathon training for that was a lot easier than the first time training for one, because the first time it was all new, everything. You're going to a 30K to a 32K, 36K, which was the longest before doing the first marathon. And I remember doing that 36, and it like nearly broke me. Like I was just like, how the heck am I going to do this? Because it was literally new for my physical elements. It was new for the mental. It was just like, what the heck? Right? And it was very, very hard to really fathom and understand how am I going to do it. And then obviously doing the second time round, it was, I mean, it was not saying it was easy, it was just as hard, but I already had gone through that experience. So the mental element it's always still going to pop up, and it's going to be tough, it's going to be hard, but it kind of, that some of that had disappeared, right? So I know I could do it because I've done it before, right? But it was more around, how do I, keep that momentum longer, or further, or stronger. So yeah, yeah. I mean, I think probably, the struggles have always been in the depth of a deep run, and just kind of playing with myself. Oh, do I stop? Do I not? Do I keep walking? Do I keep going? Or what was that feeling? Or what was this? Or and playing with yourself. But in terms of getting out, it's, I never really. I mean, on my videos, I might say, I wasn't feeling it this morning, but I'm out here anyway. But that's usually not because of running. It's usually because of other things which you just feel down. But then once you run, you kind of like, oh yeah, well, everything else doesn't matter anymore, right? So yeah, that's probably the way I would look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like yesterday, I was gonna run. I didn't have anything necessarily scheduled, but my body wasn't feeling good. I just didn't feel great. And so I was like, you know what? It was cold, it was raining. I'm like, and I'm not feeling 100%. And, it's like where you said, Googling symptoms, can I run? Most of the time, if you're like, if I'm congested and I don't feel 100%, yeah, I'll probably usually will go out and run. But if my body starts to feel a little achy, it's like, no, it's probably, I'll do myself worse if my body, now, granted, I have done it before and I've pushed through and I ended up being fine. But there are times where you're just going to push your body too much, and then you're going to be out longer, right? Because you've ran your immune system down, and then you end up getting sick. And then, we don't want to do that. But like you said, if it's misting outside, I'll go out and run. And if it's a light rain, most of the time, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But if it's a torrential downpour and I haven't ran yet, I don't know. But if I'm already out for the run and it starts, that's a different concept, because I'm already out there in the elements, and it starts while I'm out there. And so you don't really get to decide, right? It decides for you. And so then you just tackle that challenge as you face it. But yeah, I don't do lightning, but anything else, I'll usually go out and I'll run, because, being tall, I don't want to be, I'm a lightning rod out there trying to run. But as far as challenges go on the mental aspect, Chris, I know like you mentioned, as you go through, the more times you go through those particular distances or events, your body, it's almost like muscle memory, right? You run so many 5Ks, not to say you won't have pain and not to say you won't have challenges, but you have already in your mind and your body knows kind of what to expect, right? That's that expectation. You've been there before, you've done this. So now you can exert that extra energy into how you overcome if you've, if you're dealing with other things. So yeah, my first marathon, I was about to die and was so sore and I couldn't walk for days.
Yeah.
And the same thing when I ran my 100 miler, I couldn't walk for a couple of days. But it's like, as you do those events, the body starts to, more time on your feet. You're not to say that you can't experience pain, but you're going to be able to get over it quicker, right?
Yeah.
The body knows what's going on. And so when you were running your second marathon, the one that you really started documenting on YouTube, I really had fun watching it and listening to your training progression. But you faced a whole different challenge with that when you were training. But when you ran it, it wasn't the expectation that you had in mind to run a marathon. So kind of take us through what you were going through with that, because I mean, here we are in the midst of a global pandemic, and here you're wanting to run your second marathon, and you're throwing a complete curveball on how you go about doing it.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, and I'm so grateful that when I started the marathon training plan, that when I did my first, kickoff intro to the plan, is I was very clear, not knowing what that would mean at the time. This was in about June. I basically said, there's probably a chance that the marathon would get cancelled, but I'm going to do it anyway, kind of thing. Not knowing what that meant and where that meant, but I was just expecting if they cancel the event, I'll just be doing it around, finding a nice long stretch of somewhere to do it, right? And then obviously as we progressed through, and I think it was week 8 of the 20-week plan that I realized, we everything got really, I guess, a bit worse here in Australia and Melbourne, and we went into lockdown. And then having to face the 2-hour curve, the 2-hour outside I guess restriction. You were only allowed to exercise outside of home for 2 hours. That was like, okay, this is interesting. At the time it wasn't too bad because I wasn't getting to that 2-hour threshold of running yet, but then as I started to do that, I had to realize, well, now that means I need, sorry, let me say that again. It started off with a 1-hour exercise limit, which was a bit of a challenge, because when I got into the 2 hours, it meant I had to do an hour outside of home and then an hour in the backyard, which, that at the start of mentality was a bit weird. And it wasn't too bad because the distances were maybe between 20, 25K. So it was only really an hour to an hour and 40. So I was only really doing 40 minutes of, backwards and forwards. And then obviously then they opened it a bit more up and we were able to do 2 hours. But, this was the mentality. Sorry, I didn't have any of this mentality when I first started. I had the mentality that it probably wasn't going to be what I expected, but this was way far further than what I expected, worst case. And, then having to then do the actual marathon, because so they canceled the marathon and they delayed it till December, and it's actually happening later this week. But I'm like, I can't delay up until December, because when they actually canceled it and pushed it out, I was basically 2 weeks out, or actually it might have even been a week out. And I was like, I can't delay. I've done all the peak training. I'm basically in taper mode, and I was like, what the heck am I going to do? But we still had the 2-hour exercise limits, and I'm like, then I thought back to myself. I'm like, well, no, I posted my original video saying I'm going to do this regardless, and I've been training and I've got the momentum. So I'm like, let's find the closest virtual marathon, which is like official time, because I wanted to still get the official time. Because I could just go run anywhere, right? But I kind of wanted to still get, that it's credited and whatnot, because I was aiming for a personal PB. And so I found the New York Marathon, and so it just so happened it was 2 weeks out. So I'm like, okay, I can delay 2 weeks. I can, kind of stretch my taper and whatnot. And at that time, I didn't know if we would still have the 2-hour restrictions or not. We were kind of hoping that it would change. It didn't. So that meant doing, marathon half outside around, doing some 5K loops, and then finishing 2.5 hours basically in the backyard, doing 400-meter repeats in the driveway. And, at the time of thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I can do this, because I had already trained 2 hours of that. Worst case, I did 2 hours of that type of training. So I was like, no, this is going to be okay. I've got the momentum. And as you kind of alluded to before, you can have everything planned out, everything, you're fueled, you're how you're going to do it, how you're going to handle with the mental. And I thought I had everything perfect, right? But, I think the thing that I underestimated is the mental challenges of running solo for a marathon in such a, I guess, back and forth, and not having any of that race vibe experience, right? And, we train solo anyway, so you get into that and you're used to it. But just naturally race day, it's just different, right? Like, just whatever it is, for whatever reason, right? Mentally, you're like, okay, this is the big day. But it's like, really, it's just like any other training, but mentally you just get excited, you're nervous, it's, you're feeling things, and it's just weird, right? But I think the challenge there that I underestimated was not having that race day vibe, the thousands of people, or the person to chase, or the crowds of random people, or the spontaneous kids with high fives, or that I had my family around, and that was great, and they were able to give some support and some encouragement, and it really did boost. But there was a lot of things there I really didn't plan for, especially the back and forth, right? As you go back, you kind of you lose momentum as you turn around and come back. And that I didn't really, not as an excuse, it's just something now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that would have caused a lot of problem, because your muscles are stopping, starting, you're turning around, you're losing the momentum, and you do that over 52 loops. You're basically losing time each time, because your body's just, it's getting right.
Yeah, you start to get in that repetition, and your mental, even though you may not have been, you may have, but you start to count, right? Oh man, I got 50 more loops of this. I've got 45 more loops of this, and it's just, it gets redundant, it gets boring. The same scenery over and over and over. It's like running on the treadmill, right? It's just the same boring, and you gotta get to where you can do those types of things, because some races, like what you experienced, you're gonna have that. Ultra running, you get that to where it's boring. Mile after mile after mile. It's like, on the race that I did 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, it was supposed to be 5 mile, 2.5 out, 2.5 back. Well, it was the same scenery over and over and over, but at least it was spread out long enough to where it was like, okay, you start to see landmarks, and it's like, okay, I'm close to being done with this loop. And you don't really try to think about it. But, I've done back and forth in my neighborhood to the stop sign and back in my neighborhood is a mile. Well, you do that for 6, 7, 8, 9 miles, it starts to get really old, because you see the same houses, the same cars, the same kids on the street, and you have to push through it mentally. It's hard. And I know, you hit the wall in that marathon, physically and mentally. It wasn't happening like you wanted it to, but so then you had to switch gears and say, you know what, I'm not going to get a personal best today. It's not about that. I just got to finish. I got to finish what I start, because I've got people watching, and I'm videoing this, and I don't want to have a video say, sorry, I didn't finish it, guys. I hate to disappoint you. But you did finish it, and, you recovered, and, you start to plan for your next event, which is that trail race coming up next month, or is it in February?
Oh, it's in Jan.
Okay. And you start to have issues. Once again, another challenge arises. You start to have issues, and you got this little, as we would sometimes, as runners, we tend to oftentimes just, whatever, we just keep on going, right? You've got a little twinge here, or a little wrinkle of pain here, and you don't really think about it. But it was nagging you, and it was causing some problems. So you went and got that checked out. What all was happening with that?
Yeah. So, and I mean, I've posted it on my Instagram already, but, for anyone that's watching and hasn't seen on Instagram, so spoiler alert, because I just released my plan video for, the training plan for that, but and hopefully week 1 of that training plan will hopefully drop this weekend. So you'll be able to see the full detail. But yeah, essentially, run number 3 actually it was run number 2. It was a bit of a 7K, which actually turned out to be 6K. I was getting a bit of weird tightness, and this is actually coming back to our conversation, is around you start to realize what your body's capable of, and when something's not right. And sometimes there's little noggins and whatnot, and you're like, yeah, it's nothing. But I was feeling really heavy just in one side of, like, on my left side, and I'm like, I'm not tired, but like, so you try and push on a bit more, and then you feel something a bit different, and you're like, okay, that's interesting. And then you get to the end, and as you run, a lot of the time our injuries, you zone it out, right? You can kind of get rid of it. But then this one was playing with me, and then once I got to the end, and I stopped, that's when it flared up, right? And I was like, okay, this is not something. And so I figured let's see, I'll give it a day, and I'll give it a roll, and all the usual stuff. And then the next day I went out, and I was feeling good, and I figured I won't go do what I had intended, which was go do some hill repeats. I'll just go explore where I intend to do the hill repeats, and just measure it out to make sure it's what I was thinking in my plan. And then, yeah, sure enough, 1K in, I was like, nah, it's back again. And I'm like, this is not, I have to be sensible if I want to even have any chance of doing this. And so I went to the physio, and was a good boy, and I got it checked out. And so essentially I've got a tear in my soleus in my left calf muscle. Well, whether he said it was muscle or part of the tendon, he said, it doesn't really matter, and it's hard to determine. It's more about, you need to stop if you want to do any do the 2 bays. And down to the point where he said, I can only walk every second day just to be being sensible. So I was like, so this week's been a bit of a pain, just because, well, usually running's my chance to get out, get free the mind and everything. But it's kind of funny because I was able to get out more when I was in lockdown than I am now that we're allowed to go out. I'm more cooped up than I was previously. So a little frustrating, but if anything I've learned is the 2 Bays trail race. Every year I've trained for it, I've actually always had an injury. And it's just because, I've come from a big year of training or whatever, and it usually just loads up and hits me hard. And this year I thought I had skipped it. I actually, at the start of the week 1 video, when I release it, the first episode, the first run, I'm like, I'm so happy I've actually made it this far and no injury. And then it was the next day I get it. Which it's the reality of it. And there's no, I'm now, I guess, mature enough in my running to know that no, I need to give it a week and see where I'm at. And even the physio, when he was trying to tell me, he was being careful of what he was saying, because he knew that I was probably thinking, tell me how it is, can I run, exactly. And he said, look, I'm not going to say you can do the 2 bays, but I am going to say it's not out of the picture, right? And he said, let's just take it 1 week at a time.
Yeah.
And the good thing is I've had a number of injuries over the years, and I'm at the point where I know that I need to just do what I'm told. And let's so I'm going there today again, and I'll find out if he wants me to try anything else and whatnot. And to be honest, it's been a painful week, because it has been stiff and it's been sore, but I think it's just because, look, I don't know, it's a different pain. I've been doing the exercise has been asking, so it could be just because I'm putting the load on it, and it's it's the good kind of pain. But you always overthink these things, right? So
absolutely. And the worst thing to do is start doing your own research and trying to figure out what it is, and your mind starts playing tricks on you. Best thing to do is rest. And like you said, you got out more during lockdown than you are right now. And as a runner, that when you enjoy running and you're laid up, as you would say, and you can't run, it really starts to eat on you mentally and emotionally. Because for me, like, if I've been injured and I'm driving down the road along the trails and I see people out running, it's like, I want to go run. I want to go run. And so then that's like, I'm getting healed. I'm okay. I'm going to go out. And, I have gone out prematurely before and, made it worse. But then there's also times where I just eased back into it, and I was fine. But, rest is best. And so, it's better to take this easy, because you don't want it to be a long-term nagging injury that keeps you from running the race. Right. And so, honestly, you've got the time on your feet already. You've got a lot of conditioning. So 1 week is not going to kill you in your overall quest to go and get this. So, you take that week off, kind of ease back into it and see how things go. If it gets to where it's something that progresses more, well, then, there's other considerations that you may not be able to run it. Hopefully that's not the case. But aside from running, Chris, I know Goku Runner's been watching, and as we know, he's a pretty massive runner there, and he inspired me to go out and get a 1 mile timed run in this last week, um, and I always love when people ask questions. But one of the things he wanted to know is, aside from running, what are some activities that you do for fitness purposes? I know for myself, for those that are watching or listening, I've started riding my bike and getting more into bike riding. As well as when I'm with my boys playing some basketball, and also disc golf. That's another thing that I like to do. Haven't done it in a while, but so I try to mix it up a little bit. What are some things that you like to do aside from running that's physically fit, is good, whether it's cardio or just getting out and doing something?
Yeah. Now, look, I mean, it's a good question, and I'm going to be 100% transparent and authentic. Is not much else, to be honest. No, but look, I mean, I mean, now that I've been working from home since March this year, right? And I've been able to really just make the most of the running. So that's what I've really done one, because it's been training, but it's also just been both exercise, mental, and just for freedom, right? So, I've leveraged that a lot. But I mean, as I mentioned at the start, was, I am doing a bit of yoga, mobility, stretching, all that on a daily basis. Previously, I would have quite a bit of a workout routine, like it's a bit more high intensity. And to be honest, I've offset that with running. Now, I always think about, oh, maybe I should be doing that and whatnot. But there is some areas where I want to explore next year a bit more, and the reason for that is there'll be some changes in my lifestyle and whatnot, so I'll have probably a bit more ability to do some of this. But I mean, I do actually, funny that you mentioned Goku Runner, I actually do have a skipping rope which I would love to get into a bit more, and I actually tried that out probably 4 months ago, and doing it's Goku Runner makes it look very easy. And
Right.
you do it, and I'm on there, I do it for like a couple of minutes, whatever, and like you really do feel it. Like
Yes.
it's a good workout, and that's something that what I really want to do is, because and I've already said it on one of my live streams, is that I want to do a 50K next year in 2021, and that will probably be around the September period, and I really want to make sure I'm not just doing a plan in June and rushing and stuff, but actually building a bit more of a holistic, fitness. So it's not
Sure.
just about the 50K, but from a lifestyle perspective. So there has been some areas which I've kind of just been looking at or exploring this year in terms of some of the skipping. So my girlfriend, she was previously training for a triathlon before the pandemic, and she's been riding and stuff, and I would love to be able to get into that and do that with her, and that way it brings a bit of the cross training as well. And so to be frank, I haven't really been doing anything else, but there's definitely some different areas there which I would love to incorporate and even bring onto the channel in some aspects, just because I think I'll have a bit more time that I'll be able to, I mean, a ride, you can go do if you spend the same amount of time riding that you do when you're running, obviously you're doing a further distance, which means I can actually do even further with the riding potentially, right? In terms
Absolutely.
of getting the benefits back. So that's something I really want to explore. But I really do need to get into something that I've always struggled with. Is I've put off doing the real long, I guess, the strength and intensity days, whether it's weightlifting or
Yeah.
weights or squats and all that. And that's something I really want to ensure that I'm incorporating into, because to be honest, my injury is probably because of lack of that. Even though I've been doing mobility, I've been doing the stretching and yoga, which that was to offset some of my older injuries. And now this way, it's probably going to be the same thing. I'm going to learn that, okay, I need to have, a, a minimum of X per week of this stuff, and really get back into that routine of those kind of things. Because I did used to do it with my mate back in the day, and we did a bit of it, but once again, it wasn't consistent enough. And I think, I mean, this is all part of the running journey. And as you
Right.
explore into those, is finding, what your body needs versus what works and what doesn't. And, as I started to incorporate more mobility and agile training and the yoga, that's really offset some of the other areas where I've, been struggling. And then simple things as, having a standing desk, because I work in the technology industry, and prominently I was always sitting, but then, having a standing desk and you're able to offset some of the sitting on the glutes. And so, those little things always go a long way. But I think, the next area will be around the strength stuff, like really proper strength training. And I really do want to get into the riding as well. My girlfriend, she actually sent me a photo last night. She just started to go out again because things are freeing up a bit more. So she did a nice 10 or 20k ride, and just seeing that, I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous, because I'm allowed to be riding. Actually, my physio said I can, but I don't have a bike. So that's what now I'm like, damn it, like it's like it's bad timing. So now I've got FOMO and fear of missing out, and I'm like, I want a bike, because it's the next closest thing I'd be able to do. But that's definitely something I'll be looking at getting into.
Yeah, I think Chris, that's the same thing for so many of us, including myself. It's like, I started adapting and bringing in the biking, but before the pandemic and even before then, I was well, and even before that, a couple of years ago, I was really into the company I worked for. We had a gym, and I could go during my lunch hour, right? And I was working out 3-4 times a week.
Yep.
I was starting to get, as they would say, I was starting to get swole. I was getting ripped and feeling good. And I saw a picture of myself. I was going through my pictures last week, and I told my wife, I was like, man, that's where I want to look again. Because not to say that I've gotten out of shape, but I could see, right? And I could see the definition in my arms and my traps and, everything. I was like, man, I looked good. And I didn't have any running injuries at that time. And I was running faster. And since then, I stopped working out and I started running longer distances. And I'm like, my body needs more strength training. And so, I got all this equipment before the pandemic hit, and I haven't really, I've got the rope and I've got the balance ball and I've got all these things, and it's like all these great intentions, and it's about getting back into creating another habit, right? Running is almost, I can do that without even thinking. I just put my shoes on and go.
Exactly.
Develop that mentality. Okay, working from home has been probably one of the hardest challenges, because I don't escape from work, right? I'm at home.
Yep.
If I can just force myself, like I used to in my office, go downstairs and work out. If I could just get up, go change clothes, and go in my garage and work out, you got to get that routine and start doing it. But like you said, if we start to incorporate those strength training exercises and things, you're probably going to have fewer injuries, because you're offsetting those possibilities. Like your soleus, most likely is because you haven't been lifting, you haven't been doing that cross training. And same for me. That's when I really started last year before the pandemic hit. I started having some quad issues and some calf issues. And I'm like, what is going on? It's because my core was weak. And my chiropractor said, hey, you need to strengthen your core. Here's some core workouts to do. And I'm like, I don't want to do all that, because
I just want to run.
Work and it's hard. And then I have to think because I have to incorporate that into my training schedule. And so it's just all about coordination and stuff. And we'll get there. You just got to learn to bring new things in.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, because as just for everyone who's listening, or for the playback as well, is as I've grown into running, when you start running, you're running. You don't see all the stuff behind the scenes. But now that I've been doing it for 5-6 years, running isn't just me getting up and going out for a run. There's the the stretching beforehand. There's the cool down, the warm ups. There's the strength training. There's the maintenance. There's there's a lot more to it, right? And when I've had people message me and say, "Oh, you make this look all easy," I'm like, trust me, it's not. I'm so humbled, and so I'm so thankful and grateful when people say that. But I'm like, I'm far from perfect. There's so many things I'm not doing that I should be doing. But at the same time, there's you go for a 30-minute run, but you have to do a 15-minute thing beforehand, and then there's the cool so it does take a lot out of it, right? And one more thing you have to add. But I think having that routine, and that will be the approach I'll take, is getting in that routine so it becomes a healthy habit, at least daily, or in small elements, so I'm not trying to just squeeze it in one day. And that way it becomes a habit, and it's just part of your day. But it's sometimes we're our own worst enemies, and we got to look at the long game and put the investment in, and it'll be happy days.
You just have to adapt and make do. And so last question, another one that was put up there on the YouTube, because I'm not used to having questions thrown at me.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of a fun one. Before I let you go, if you had the choice, Chris, which would you rather be running away from, a cougar or a bear?
Probably a bear.
That's my sentiments as well, because bears, yes, they can be fast, but they can be
not as fast as a cougar.
They can be a little bit more docile. And I know from videos that have been out there, there's been too many of those cougar.
Yeah.
I don't feel like being tracked down and being lunch for cougar. And I know cougars are faster than bears, right? But in my opinion, is I just got to run faster than you. If I
That's it. That's it. Oh, jeepers. Yeah, no. I mean, obviously, I don't have to worry about that here because we don't have bears or cougars. But I guess it's always not exciting, I guess. But I love dogs. But when you go for a run and there's a dog, and you just never know which way it's going to go. Right?
Dogs always seem to find me.
It's always a scary feeling just because they are, and usually it's because they're being protective. And when there's some random guy running towards its owner or something, it's going to be like, what the heck are you doing, right? But
one dog is
always
one thing. It's when you run into a pack of dogs, that's a whole nother. And that gets your heart rate going and gets you going. And I had a race 2 years ago. It was in a race. I was doing a 100-miler. Pack of 5 dogs in the country, and I was running. It was about 15 miles into the race, and I saw them about a half mile up the road to their house, and I saw them, and their ears perked up, and here they came, and I was like, "Oh no, this isn't good." I took off running. Fortunately, the owner got in his truck and drove down there and rescued. But that could have been a bad situation, and I've known so many people that have been attacked by dogs. I like dogs, but not when I'm running. Because you never know, especially in the country, you never know what kind of condition that dog is in. And most likely he might be nice, but he, like you said, he's probably protecting his property. And that can go south real quick. And I prefer not to have to encounter anything to get my heart rate elevated any more than doing hills.
Especially if you're running up a hill.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, I really appreciate you jumping on with me today. This was fun. It's awesome to get to finally meet you, not in person, but virtually. And I love watching your stuff, and I will continue to follow along, and I hope you'll do the same. And I hope those that are listening and watching got something out of today. And again, if you want to find Chris on YouTube, you can find him at CL Furlong. You can find me at the Scarecrow Runner. And as I tell all my listeners and my guests, appreciate your time, and we'll see you down the trail, Chris.
Yeah, that's it. I really appreciate it, and I'm so happy and so grateful that you reached out and that I had this opportunity. And as you said, even though we're in complete different locations in the world, and you wouldn't even know it, kind of thing. And it's great to be able to connect and meet you at this new level. And 100%, hopefully this is just the start of even more and more of these kind of conversations. And I will allude to a lot of other people that there will be some changes on my channel for the better, and hopefully some more interactions and collaborations and lives and things like that. So who knows, maybe next time it will be you on mine. So
why not? Maybe we can do a virtual run together. That would be cool.
And no, so really do appreciate it, mate. It's